Welcome, I'm Jon Caldara, president of the Independence Institute and your devil's advocate. A little later in the program, El Paso Sheriff Mikita will be joining me to talk about the gun control issues. But first, I've been waiting to do this for a long time. A guy who has created so many homes and so much business. David Liniger, thank you for being with us.
Oh, thank you so much.
I wanted to talk to you about this. Now, this is not what I would expect from a real estate mogul, my next step. And pardon me for just jumping right in this. You nearly died, of all things, of a simple staph infection. The kind of thing that my mother always warned me about. Clean out that cut, young man. You'll die of a staph infection. And I rolled my eyes. What exactly happened? What was the issue?
Well, you know, I played a lot of dangerous games for 60-some years and lived through everything. And so I bought an electric car. They delivered it to my house. And I stretched an electric cord out, plugged it in to charge it overnight, and I went in the house and told everybody, be careful, there's an electric cord in the way, I haven't taped it down yet, we'll get around to it, but just watch for it. And about 10:30 that night, I was carrying the trash out through the garage, forgot it, tripped right over it and fell on my arm, and I scratched deep scratches, but nothing that would take stitches or anything. We bathed it, put hydrogen peroxide on it, Neosporin, and then it took about 2 months to heal.
I'm sorry, that doesn't make a very compelling story. Something else must have happened. What else happened?
So 2 months later, I'm in Galveston, Texas to do a RE/MAX seminar. Mm-hmm. I wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning in the hotel room, paralyzed from my waist down.
You wake up and you can't move?
Yes.
And you had no idea this was coming?
I've had back problems for years.
Yeah.
The doctors have been giving me steroid shots in my spine. I actually carried my MRI and my doctor's instructions with me in my briefcase. And I thought, okay, that's time for back surgery. We put it off as long as we can. Hospital in Galveston just stabilized me. Managed to get a corporate plane back to Denver the next day and went into Sky Ridge. 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I check in. I'm, clear of eye. I'm thinking pretty good. I hurt. They gave me some morphine. I went to sleep, and I woke up 4 months later.
You woke up 4 months later. What put you into a coma?
The staph infection called MRSA had apparently gone throughout my body and become septic and put me into shock. And so they couldn't figure out what was wrong. They rushed me to intensive care. 2 weeks later, I flatlined, my heart gave out, and one of the cardiologists came in, jumped up, and started doing CPR, brought me back to life, but I don't remember any of that. I was basically in a coma, in and out, and that was it. The next day they started the operations. They said, we can't wait any longer, and 3 operations later, and whatever it was, I ended up at Craig Rehab Center for spinal cord injury.
You were paralyzed. You couldn't move. How bad was that?
Well, my left side had some slight movement to it, but even as I'm coming out of the coma, the right side was totally frozen. I had gone into a fetal position. My right arm and shoulder was tight against my chest. My feet were extraordinarily sensitive for some reason. Couldn't even have a sheet across them or anything. It was just incredible pain. And what had happened is the MRSA had attached itself to my spinal column, to my brain stem, had gone throughout my lungs, my kidney, my liver, of all things. And it was just incredibly painful and very, very frustrating.
What gets me about this, and why I find it compelling, is you're David Liniger. This doesn't happen to you. You're one of Colorado's top businessmen. You're a wealthy individual. This is the kind of thing that if you were going to have a staph infection leading to paralysis, you just subcontract that to somebody else. You would delegate it to an assistant. The idea that this happens to somebody like you, no, it doesn't. Your money will protect you. Your fame will protect you. The company you built, RE/MAX, is a great realtor company that has so many, have helped people buy and sell homes now for 40 years. No, it doesn't happen to you.
Were you in my hospital room with me? That's the same questions I asked myself. And there's this bewilderment. But when you come out of a coma, it isn't like in the movies where they click your fingers and wow, you're wide awake and you remember everything. You're drugged up for the pain. You come in and out of consciousness. It happens over a period of time. And one of my first memories, once I was really totally conscious, was talking to a psychiatrist. And I asked him finally, I said, look, what's my mental capacity? And he said, Dave, he says, we got you at about kindergarten level. And I said, well, thank you. I couldn't figure out certain things. I couldn't remember the year. I could remember dates, but I couldn't remember the year. And a couple months later, I progressed, and he proclaimed, Dave, we got you up to high school level. And I said, Doc, don't be too proud. That's all I got.
As far as I went before. Let me ask you something very personal about this. There is a time you're laying there and you ask the age-old question, to be or not to be. I mean, at some point, here you are, somebody who's built this incredible business, has changed the industry, who's a leader in it, and now you're in a fetal position. You can't move. You're brain damaged as far as the doctors can tell. I mean, at what point did you ask, time to cash it in? It's been okay. I don't want to live like this.
One of the few memories as I came in and out of consciousness of the 8 weeks of intensive care at Sky Ridge was late at night, we think 4 or 5 weeks in, and I finally just said I quit. I hurt, I was depressed, drugs depress you. I was in a lot of pain, I couldn't move, I knew I was paralyzed and couldn't move my fingers or my toes, and I said, man, I've had a heck of a life. And I said, this ain't worth it. Give it up. I quit. Had my little pity party for a little while, and somewhere within either minutes or hours the same night, I thought to myself, you are a hypocrite. You are an absolute loser.
Why is that a loser question or decision? In that it could be a very difficult and courageous decision to say, I'm not going to drag my family through this. I could be dealing with this for years. This might be as good as it gets. And if this is as good as it gets, I don't want to live like this. Why would that be
well, in the first place,
a hypocritical thing to say?
I tried to die, but I couldn't reach my hand out to unplug anything. I would hold my breath, and all I do is pass out and wake back up immediately. And I couldn't find a way to do it. But at some point, I just said, you are a hypocrite. For 40-some years of my life, I gave motivational speeches around the world about how you can accomplish anything. You set goals, you do a step-by-step plan, you work at it for years, and you become an overnight success. And at that moment, I finally said, I will not be a hypocrite for those 40 years of my life. If I'm going to be a paraplegic, by golly, I'll be the best paraplegic this hospital's ever met. And I even thought through, I had seen at Craig Hospital, handicapped basketball in wheelchairs. These are tough guys and girls. They pound each other. They roll upside down in their wheelchairs. Somebody turns them up and they go back to the fight. And I made my mind up, if I'm not as macho as I used to be, I'm still going to be a macho paraplegic.
All right, so what? It took you 3 days of recovery, and you're back to where we are now. So it wasn't that long of a journey. How long from that decision till the point where you could actually walk out of the hospital on your own or with very little assistance? I mean, when did you get your walking papers?
By June, I started telling the doctors that I was walking out of this place. And they would look at me with a sad look in their eyes, and they'd say, Dave, we hope so. We don't know what the extent of your injuries on your spinal column are. We will hope for the best and train for the worst. And I said, forget the training. I'm walking out of here. My date I put up on the wall. The kids wrote me up some big placards. And I said, I'm going home June 26th. And on June 26th, I still had not been able to swing my legs out of the hospital bed to sit in my wheelchair. We extended it. I set my goal for July the 29th. And on July 28th or 29th, I left the hospital. They were wonderful people. They were very frustrated that I would push it. I couldn't walk. I couldn't take my first step yet. They wanted 24-hour nursing to get me out of my bed, into my chair, into the shower chair, onto the toilet, all this stuff. And I said, I got to learn how to do this on my own. I'm doing it.
At the same time, you still have a business to run. I saw the Remax commercials. I still got all the flyers. The agent that I've used to buy a house, he was still sending me stuff. I didn't see the machinery break. Did the people at your office, did they know what was going on?
The only people that knew was family, my board of directors, and 4 or 5 of my key officers. We had a succession plan that said my CEO would take over. She was a marvelous woman. She worked with me for 25 years, personally trained her, best that we've ever hired in our company. She never missed a step. And the thing that's interesting about it was we kept it from the press. I didn't want TV stations, and I didn't want newspapers and everything talking about it. And so, interestingly enough, 2 or 3 reporters figured it out. I'm fairly visible. I've been known to have golf and drinks with some of the reporters. And they asked my son, how serious is it? And my son said, on the record or off the record? And they said, we respect your father. We'll make it off the record. He told them that I was on my deathbed. We were trying to make it. Not one of them broke the story. As a matter of fact, I've interviewed with a couple of them this week on TV, which is kind of interesting. And it was very honorable. It was respected my privacy. We didn't want the paparazzi and the scandal sheets, and it worked.
What made you want to write all about it? My next step. What is the message of all this that you're trying to get to other people? I mean, I'm hopeful you're not telling me let's all slip and break our necks so that we can have a great recovery experience.
I wouldn't.
What is it that I'm supposed to take away from your recovery?
Jon, everybody goes through tragedy and trauma in their life. You and I were talking about your life a little while ago. We all face challenges. We have a death of a child or a loved one. We go through a bitter divorce. We have a financial setback or a bankruptcy. A wounded warrior comes home with no legs. I mean, we all face these things. And there's a pattern of how you recover. And people do recover. They do go back to the original level of happiness. It just takes time, but it's
Original
a
level of
step by
happiness.
step.
Let me challenge you. We've got less than a minute, but original level of happiness?
Yes.
Now, I've told you I've lost my child to cancer. I've got a son who's been through 11 surgeries with his Down syndrome. I don't know how long he might be with us. I mean, you're saying that there's a level of happiness when you have that kind of hurt. Afterwards, you can get back to that same amount of joy you had in life.
Of course you can, and you do. There are paraplegics, quadriplegics. There are people like you that have lost your children. You do recover. That's the human mind and the human heart is very resilient.
It is indeed, and so are you. Hey, thank you, Dave. Book, My Next Step. Check it out and stay tuned.